Go ahead, Mike.
We're going to call to order the Planning Commission meeting tonight, Tuesday, May the 5th, 2020. It is 6:00 p.m. I am in the mayor's conference room. However, this is a virtual Zoom type of meeting. Can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Avery.
Present.
Mr. Buttarf. Ms. Bupp.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mr. Webb.
Here.
Mr. Paris.
Here.
And Mr. McCutcheon.
Present.
Let the record
assuming everybody had an opportunity to look at the March the 10th, 2020 minutes. If there's no corrections or anything that need to be added, I'll move for a motion to approve those.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Mr. Burns. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Paris. Roll call, please, I think.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Mr. Buttarf.
Aye.
Ms. Bupp.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Paris.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We're going to move to approve tonight's docket. I think if we can, there is 3 items that are tabled. It would be number 2, PC 2011 has tabled request, and PC 2020, which is 11, has a tabled request, and number 12, PC 2021 has a tabled request. All others would stand in place unless there's anyone that would like to make a change to the docket. If not, then I'll make a move for a motion to approve the docket.
Make a motion to approve the docket.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Buttarf.
Approve.
Ms. Bupp.
Approve.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Paris.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. There is no old business to be dealt with, but we'll move directly into the new business, starting with number 1, PC 20-10. Erica Bruce May filed a development plan application with waivers for property at 5415 Highway 62. The property is zone C2, which is commercial. The proposed development is a restaurant. The docket number is PC-20-10. Do we have representation here with us today?
Yes, David Sanders, Paul Primavera and Associates, 301 East Chestnut Street, Corydon, Indiana, 47112.
Thank you.
This is a Waffle House restaurant that was previously approved substantially the same as it is now, with variances and waivers, probably 5 years ago. So we're outside of the window for them to go ahead and continue with construction. So we're back in. They're ready to proceed with construction as soon as possible. We made some changes to landscaping to more closely or to comply with the current landscaping ordinance. We have some waivers for the numbers of trees as well as some in lieu trees on that. Otherwise, I think we're substantially or exactly the same as previously submitted. So anybody would have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those at this time.
Okay, at this moment in time, we'll open up for public comment. Sean, was there any letters or anything received on this stuff? No.
We do not have anything.
Okay, and nothing, Shelby, you have nothing downstairs for us to report? Okay. We'll close public comment at this point in time and open up for the board for comments, concerns, or questions. Feel free to ask those at this point in time.
I don't have any questions. I haven't had any calls. I think it's good for District 6, and there was no complaints that came into me.
Okay. If there's no further, anybody else, if nobody else has anything, we will move to, let's see, we are a motion to approve the development plan. Do I have a motion to approve the development plan?
I make a motion to approve the proposal development plan PC 2010 and request waiver for the landscape fee in lieu as presented by the Plan Commission on May 5th, 2020.
Okay,
Second.
and I have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Paris,
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Aye.
Mr. Avery,
Aye.
Mr. Butterf,
Aye.
Ms. Bupp.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to number 3. Robert Libbs filed a development plan application with waivers for property at the northwest corner of Hamburg Pike and Charleston, New Albany Road. The property is zoned C1, commercial. The proposed development is a commercial strip center. The docket number is PC-20-12. Do we have representation with us today?
Mr. Chairman, Jason Copperwaite with Paul from Varian Associates, 301 East Chestnut Street, Corydon, Indiana. Here representing CBRL LLC, which is Bobby Libbs. This is a 1.4 acre piece of property at the corner of Hamburg Pike and Charlestown New Albany Pike. It's a triangular shape, fronting on those 2 roads and backing up to the CSX Railroad. Because it's a corner lot, it basically has 2 fronts and a rear. There are 2 entrances, one on Hamburg Pike and one on Charlestown New Albany Pike. And I met with Andy Crouch on site to approve those 2 locations. Last week at the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Board of Zoning Appeals granted variances for the structure height, for a parking setback, parking distribution, again, because it's a corner lot, and no gable roof, which is a fairly common variance. The waiver we're asking for is a side yard setback. And again, as I mentioned, that side yard is the side that butts up against the railroad. It's an odd shaped piece, and we basically did it's interesting the way that the site laid out in order to fit it on there. We have 29 parking spaces. You have in your packet a code compliant landscape plan, a code compliant site lighting plan, and then you have building elevations that show a substantial amount of brick, ephes, and awnings that set out the what I think will be an attractive building. It is at this point a speculative strip center. I don't have any idea what the tenants are going to be, but I know Mr. Libbs would like to fill it as quickly as he can. So be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, at this moment in time, we'll open up for public comment. Was there any letters or anything received on this one, Chad?
We have a few items, and since we're meeting virtually, we're just kind of reading these into the record. Bonnie Earhart from 3823 Hamburg Pike had some general questions for us, mostly about how it was possible that this was going to fit on the site, and why we were meeting under the shelter-in-place ordinance. But we sent her the site plans, and she did not return calls or send further letters. Belinda McCullough from 3820 Idaho Drive called with general questions, again, how this was fitting on the site, and if there were traffic issues and what it would do to her property values. We discussed that with her. Somewhat a bit ambivalent about the project, but did not make a formal complaint of any sort. We had an anonymous person who had called and asked again about what this was going to do to his property values, and parking and traffic in the area. And then Donald and Bernice Briner from 1612 Charlestown, New Albany Pike. Again, just general concerns. We answered some of those questions for them. They were very adamant that there should be really good, high quality construction on the site and not just an empty strip center. Those are the comments we received from the public.
Okay. Shelby, anything downstairs?
No comments down here.
Okay. Does the board have, or at this point in time, we'll close public comment and we will open up for the board for comments, concerns, or questions.
I'm just curious, is the proposed construction going to start right away or waiting for tenants?
Actually, we talked after the BZA meeting. I'm not exactly sure, given the state of the economy at this point. He may wait a few months for things to settle down. I'm not exactly sure on that. But after this, assuming we achieve approval tonight, we'll have to go before the drainage board. Which that'll be about a 30-day process before we could start anyway. So that would be the soonest.
Thank you.
Is there any idea what they're going to put on the property? It's an odd shape, so.
Yeah, no, right now it's a speculative strip center. He doesn't have any tenants at this point.
Okay, if the board doesn't have any further comments, questions, or concerns, I'll make a motion for a motion to approve or deny the development plan.
I make a motion, we approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Okay, we're ready for a roll call.
Mr. Paris. No, Mr. Paris. I think we've lost Mr. Paris. Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Ms. Bupp.
Aye.
Mr. Butterf.
Aye.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on, BF Highway 62 LLC filed a final plat application for a property at the intersection of Godbreath Parkway and Water Tower Road. The property is zoned C2 PD, which is a planned development. The proposed plat is a commercial development. The docket number is PC-20-13. Do we have representation here?
Yes, Josh Darby with Jacoby Toombs and Lands Engineers, representing Mr. Ed Britton with BF Highway 62 LLC. So the plat that you had before you, we actually presented a preliminary version of back in September of 2018. It was approved at that time. It essentially divided a tract of land into two tracts and created a public roadway right-of-way that would allow for the extension of Water Tower Road through that property and to the property to the south. The previous version of this plat, the right-of-way did not extend all the way to the southern property line. So we've made a revision here that would essentially just extend that right-of-way approximately 50 feet to connect to the property to the south. So we're requesting approval of this plat revision. And I also need to make note that Mr. Britton and the adjacent property owner are currently working to resolve and finalize their agreement regarding vacation of frontage road that is NDOT owned, as well as construction of the proposed road. And that once the parties have reached and signed the agreement, then Mr. Britton will sign the proposed plat and take it for recording at the courthouse. But this plat will not be signed by Mr. Britton and recorded until the agreement between he and the adjacent property owner have been signed. So I just needed to make that note.
Gotcha.
Josh, this is Les. When do you expect that's going to happen? This has been, I know from the city standpoint, this has been lingering out there for quite some time, and I think we're wanting some finality one way or the other. So when can we expect your client to record that plat, assuming it's approved tonight?
Unfortunately, I can't give you a specific date. The two parties are still working through their agreement.
Why don't I give you a date? About a week, because I think everybody needs to understand that the next matter before the commission on the docket is the adjacent property, and it's my understanding that the applicant in that case, Mr. Guthrie, has received approval from the city, I believe a year ago, for a preliminary plat whereby the road would be along the frontage, the right of way along 62. Now, I will say the city's preference is not to have the road along there. But at the same time, this has been lingering for quite some time between these two parties. I would strongly urge the applicant in this matter, Mr. Britton, to get that, assuming it's approved tonight, this final plat recorded within a week, because if not, you know, we've already got a plat approved that's going to allow the road to go along 62, even though that's not where we want it to be. So if the parties cannot reach an agreement within the next week and this plat get recorded, the city's going to have no alternative but to go ahead and allow the road and the plat along 62. So it's you know, we would much rather utilize Water Tower Station Road for both developments, but we've already approved a preliminary plat that allows Mr. Guthrie to use the road frontage, and it's just a matter of tweaking the final plat, which is purely ministerial from the standpoint of Indiana law, so there's not a whole lot of discretion that this commission has. So I just wanted to pass that along. That's, I think, where we would like for this to go, and I think we can get more in detail about what's happening with the adjacent property in the next docket matter. Chad, is that your understanding of where we're at on this?
Yes.
Josh, do you have any comment at this time?
There we go. I'm back.
Yep, Mr. Pierce.
Sorry, I switched computers.
Josh, are you still on here? Oh, did we lose him, Chad?
He's still showing on here, but well.
Okay, can we just move on here a little bit and maybe he'll jump back in here?
Yeah.
We'll open up for public comment. Is there anything that you've received, Chad, on this one?
There is nothing on this case. Thank you.
There you go. Okay, Shelby?
No, we have no comments down here.
Okay. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and open up for the board. Any comments, concerns, or questions?
Well, Les, how would we want to approve this? I mean, put some
Well,
steps on there?
No, I don't think we need a stipulation. I just wanted them to understand. I think we're going to get more in detail on the next docket matter. I just want them to understand that if they don't reach an agreement with the adjacent property owner and get this recorded within a week, the adjacent property owner is within their right to pursue a road along the road frontage, because that's what was approved in the preliminary plat for Mr. Guthrie's development. Now, the city would much rather have both developments utilize Water Station Road, but there's only so much we can do as a city to make that happen. So I'm hoping that the developers can reach an agreement. It seems like me, it's in everyone's best interest to use Water Tower Station. And hopefully once it's realized that Mr. Guthrie can still develop his property pursuant to his preliminary plat that utilizes the road frontage, then maybe some common sense will prevail here and they'll sit down and get this done.
But by approving this, would it hold him up, or would it get in for tit for tat for each other? I mean, is this going to?
No,
okay.
No. If you approve this final plat for Mr. Britton, it doesn't hold him up at all.
Okay.
His development is. I mean, whenever he records it, now it's up to him when he wants to record it.
Okay.
So if we approve now, the project goes ahead and the other project next, neither one would be impeded.
Correct.
That's correct. That's correct. And we will discuss the next project in the next docket matter, which will explain how that project, they can either go together or they can go separate. We would much rather for them to go together, but development has to happen regardless.
You're asking that he record that particular plat within a week?
Yes, because I think the next matter is going to come up is that applicant, Mr. Guthrie, is going to want some finality. They either reach an agreement or they don't. and they want to be able to proceed with their development, which I believe is a proposed hotel.
Should that be contingent then upon the approval of this plan?
I don't believe it needs to be contingent. I just wanted to put Mr. Or Josh and his client on notice that, you know, if it's not recorded, then Mr. Guthrie, the adjacent property owner, does have the ability to pursue other avenues to get access to his property, which we would rather not.
Okay.
So it wouldn't block the next project. It would still be viable if approved.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Josh, are you clear on all that conversation?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Hey, Les, can I
The
ask
board
a-
have, go ahead.
ask a question? So to give me some, let's say they can't reach agreement. We would potentially have a road, that water tower road, as well as another road intersecting that in the front that runs parallel.
That's my understanding, Chad, correct?
Yes.
Oh. That sounds like a traffic nightmare.
Well, that's why we would prefer that not to happen, but we've been, you know, obviously the city's not a party to this, but you know, what we're looking at is we've got two developers, with one developer already having a preliminary plat approved. That's already been done. That was done over a year ago to put a road out on 62, which is not what we would prefer. So we really can't stop that from happening. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the parties to reach an agreement so we can have it all on Water Tower Station Road. And hopefully this will come to fruition.
Well, we want to do it right, and we'll do it right the first time for the city. I mean, that property's been vacant a long time, and I'm surprised something's been put on there. I mean, is it good to hold off on this and put it on a different docket down the road?
I would not. I mean, I know. I cannot speak to what is developing on the adjacent property, but it's my understanding that they have some deadlines that they need to meet. So what would happen if you did not approve this plat, then the next the adjacent property owner is going to be basically in a situation where they're going to have to go forward with the road along 62.
So Les, what we're looking at is both projects appear to benefit the city. We would have a different sort of access. One would be a little bit from two directions, but we're going to get access to both properties either way, and both are going to be beneficial. It's just the hassle between the two agreeing to an additional right of way. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well,
So it's in the applicant's best interest to go ahead and do this now, correct?
yes, we probably shouldn't hold it up and then they can work out if there's an additional right of way or not. And because I think Les has explained legally, they're going to be able to do access A or access B or both. Okay. And one is a little bit better from the city's point of view, but neither one would hamper the development of the projects and the investment.
Okay.
So are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I am. If there's no further board, I think we're ready.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the applicant.
Second.
Okay. And I have a second. So we're ready for a roll call.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Ms. Bupp,
Aye.
Mr. Butterf,
Aye.
Mr. Avery,
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Aye.
Mr. Paris,
Aye.
and Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
But I think we still want to stress, they want to push this. You want to get this applicant going and work with your neighbor.
Yeah.
If you understand, I mean, you've got the idea of what's going on here. I'm not sure who's on the other line there. Your representative.
Yes, I'm still here and I understand, and I'm going to pass this along to my client immediately. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on. Clint Guthrie filed a final plat application for property at northwest corner of Highway 62 and I-265. The property is zoned HC, which is commercial. The proposed plat is a commercial development. The docket number is PC-20-14. Do we have representation?
Yes, Mr. McCutcheon, Greg Piper here for the applicant.
Thank you.
As Les stated, I won't rehash everything that was discussed in the last docket, but when this started, the only access that the Guthries had was by the frontage road. What has changed is the prior docket and the plat that would extend Water Tower Road. Our client agrees totally that that's a better plan for everyone, the city, Mr. Britton, and the Guthries. So we're 100% in favor of that, but until that plat's recorded, we don't have an ability to build within the dedicated right-of-way. We're willing to build, we're willing to pay the entire cost of the road on that route, but if we're not able to do that, then as Les says, we would ask that staff have authority to grant final plat approval of the alternative plat. If we're close to having a deal when the week's up, we're not going to walk away from that negotiation. We're going to get it over the finish line. But if there's still fundamental disagreement and it's just not feasible, what will happen is we're risking the next docket item going away because we've got contractual obligations to the Hilton Hotel project, and I'll let them speak to that more. But that's really what's prompting my client to move in the manner that they are. And we'd like to start construction of the road at the earliest possible date. And again, Water Tower Road extension being the preferred route. So we'd be glad to answer any questions. I've got Mr. Blankenbaker here who designed the subdivision and was involved in planning to use the frontage road and has worked with JTL on the proposed Water Tower Road extension, as well as the city. We're willing to build it to city approved plans for Water Tower Road. The last thing I would say is that if an agreement's not reached, the only two minor differences in the plat as approved last May for the alternative route is Hilton has, as they've designed their project, they needed another 50-foot strip of property and a very slight relocation of the cul-de-sac on the Guthrie property so that they could accommodate some additional parking. So that's, other than that, that plat is the same as initially designed by Mr. Blankenbaker. But because those changes were made, rather than having staff review that and approve it, everyone thought it was better to bring it to you, lay that on the table. But now that that's been disclosed, if there truly is no meaningful discussion a week from now, we'd like to be able to go back to staff, get that approved, and get the plans done to make the Hilton project a reality.
Gotcha. Okay, at this point in time, I'm assuming we'll move forward just like we normally do. We'll open for public comment. Chad, anything?
Not on this project. Thank you.
Shelby?
No, nothing.
Okay. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and also open up for the board for any further comments, concerns, or questions. If we have none, then we would seek a motion for approve or denial of the final plat.
I make a motion that we approve the final plat. I believe it's PC 2014. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Greg, are you requesting that be contingent upon the last docket matter, that final plat being recorded?
Within a week, and again, if meaningful discussions are still ongoing, we won't walk away from that because we really want to get that across the finish line. But yes, if in a week there's truly no meaningful discussions going that could lead to an agreement, then we'd like to have the ability to approach staff and say, please grant approval of the alternative plat that uses the frontage road.
We need to make sure that the motion reflects that.
Well,
Okay.
I think the motion is that we approve with the agreement, and if there's not an agreement reached on the earlier route, then staff will draft the alternative
Okay.
approval, okay?
That's,
Okay.
that-
Are you
Either
okay
way,
with that?
either way, they will get access.
that's our request.
Okay.
And Ms. Bupp, you're second. Were you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We're ready for roll call.
Ms. Bupp. Mr. Butterf.
Aye.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Mr. Paris.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, Robert Armstrong filed a development plan application with waivers for a property at the northwest corner of Highway 62 and I-265. The property is zoned HC Commercial. The proposed development is a hotel. The docket number is PC-20-15. Do we have representation?
Yes, Mike Hill with Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville 40222. So as mentioned, this agenda item is related to the previous agenda item. The subject parcel is a 3.3 acre lot created by the previous plat that you just discussed. We worked with Mr. Blankenbaker's office to align the boundary of our subject parcel with his plat boundary. So the proposal is a Hilton Garden Inn. It's a 5-story hotel, 114 proposed rooms. There's also a restaurant component to the project. Development plan includes a maximum structure setback waiver, as well as a signage waiver. And they're both really related to the fact that this parcel is rather unique. It's narrow in its width. It's bounded by a railroad and interstate, 100+ foot tall water tower at the terminus of a new cul-de-sac that is Water Tower Road. So those things kind of lead to some restrictions as far as design flexibility that required us to include those 2 waiver requests in our development plan. We did also have some dimensional variances that were approved last week by the Board of Zoning Appeals also. That's basically the summary of the project. I have some slides that I can show if anybody's curious to see any graphics, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Our packets do include some information and also some pictures. So as we come back around to the staff, to the board, they may, but at this point in time, we'll open up for public comment. Chad, do we have anything from anybody?
We do not.
Shelby, were we clear downstairs? I believe so. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and open up comments, questions, and concerns from the board. If we don't have any, then we'll seek a motion to approve or deny the development plan as is associated with the waivers.
I make a motion to approve the proposed development plan PC 20-15 and request waivers for setbacks and signage as presented by the Plan Commission on May 5th, 2020.
Wants to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bupp is on the second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Mr. Butterf.
Aye.
Ms. Bupp.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Paris.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, Kyle Kitzmiller filed a development plan application for the property at 3818 East 10th Street. The property is zone C2 PD, which is a planned development. The proposed development is a multifamily residential development. The docket number is PC-20-16. Do we have representation?
Yes, Kelly Jones, Sayback and Wilson here representing Miller Valentine. I wanted to give you just a little quick background on Miller Valentine. Sorry for those of you that were at BZA last week, you've already heard this, but Miller Valentine was founded 60 years ago in Ohio. They're active in multifamily development in Midwest, Sunbelt, and Mid-Atlantic regions for over 30 years, developed and managed more than 7,000 units, and they have a commitment to high-quality luxury apartments in urban and suburban markets. They provide all development, construction, and property management in-house. I have some slides I can show you. I'm not sure what Chad's provided in your packets, but let me go ahead and share the screen just so that everybody sees what the BZA team saw last week. So there we go. I'm going to skip through the development plan and landscape plan and lighting plan. I know you guys have all of those in your packet. They're all compliant. I did want to do a little quick zoom in of the development plan here. You can see the future phase 2 building, which is not getting approved today, but just to show you what their future phase will look like. This is the phase 1 building. It's a 4-story multifamily building with a courtyard in the center, surrounded by required parking. This road here is the extension of Ellingsworth Dairy Drive, and we'll have kind of an urban street front with some parallel parking, lots of green space in between the parking lots to break it up. These are building elevations. You can see lots of windows and balconies, changes in materials, and variation in roof line on all 4 sides, as well as on the interior courtyard elevations, lots of windows and balconies. This is AG 47. It's a development that they did in Cincinnati, and this is the development that this Jefferson Ridge project is being modeled after. So this is going to be very similar to what you're seeing, what you see constructed on this site. You can see the nice courtyard here with the pool and amenity space on the interior. The one thing that the Jeffersonville site will have over what this site has is even more green space surrounding the building itself. So I think that's a really good add here. These are some interior photographs of AG 47 in Cincinnati. Again, high quality materials, nice modern design, amenity space interior as well. And then this is a rendering that gives you an idea of where this sits on the site. So we've got Rolling Ridge here at the rear. We've got 10th Street out here. There's room for future commercial, most likely development here between the apartments and 10th Street, as well as another additional area for future potentially commercial development here along the access road that parallels 10th Street. We were at BZA last week for a couple of variances, one to allow 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, plus a few for visitors in lieu of the 2.5 spaces that's required, and to allow no garages, which is similar to the other M3 developments that I was able to find in town. And then the third was to allow the dumpster to be in front of the building, which it's barely in front of the building. One thing I want to note is that right now the development plan shows the entrance, the main entrance to the building right here near the corner. It's actually probably going to be shifted towards the center of the building, but still facing the boulevard. Sean suggested that we mention that today, although it does not appear to affect any zoning requirements. You can see that we are still with our corner of our building 306 feet at the closest point away from the adjacent property line to Rolling Ridge. We've got the existing detention basin that's been designed to support the whole development, as well as the stream restoration and tree planting area. Those trees back there growing up nicely. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, we'll open up for public comment. Chad, do we have anything on this one?
We have a couple, yes. Sean McPherson of 3723 Crown Ridge Lane called in. He was upset with the developer as they had cut down all the trees on that property and a few trees that were apparently on his property. These prior dealings have sort of left a bad taste in his mouth, and he's not terribly impressed with the developer, although We sent him a packet with site plan, landscape plan, and sample renderings and did not necessarily hear back from him. Our sense is that his complaints were more of the overall developer and not with the development that's in front of you. Paula Harper, who lives in Rolling Ridge, did not give her an address, but thinks the project's a great idea. It's very needed in Jeffersonville and good for the city. And then Dan Wolf from 1516 Parkland Trail, he left a voicemail and seemed all right with everything as shown. So those are the comments that we received.
Shelby, anything downstairs?
Nothing downstairs.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and we'll open up for the board to be able to comments, concerns, or questions for Kelly.
I have a few. When it comes to these apartments, what constitutes this as being a luxury apartment? There's no garages, or there carports?
There are not, and the reason there is not is based on, again, I said Miller Valentine has done a lot of multifamily all over the area, and not specifically here in Jeffersonville, but in their experience, it's hard to lease out the carports and the garages, and when they do get leased out, they get used for storage instead of parking cars, which would be detrimental to the space for cars being parked on the site. So
that would be more a management problem rather than a use problem, I would think. I think in Jeffersonville, we're being very, very lax about what we're allowing to be built under the guise of luxury apartments. What is the proposed rental fees for these apartments?
I can tell you that I have asked my client that question, and the answer was they're not exactly sure yet. They're waiting on the appraisal to come back before they can specifically set the rates. It depends their level of rent for various luxury apartments within their stash, so to speak. It varies on location. They, like I said, do not have any other developments in Jeffersonville, so they're still waiting on getting all the information they need to make that determination.
So once again, I want to ask you, what constitutes this being a luxury apartment? And are there additional facilities that are intended to be added to the property? And what about parking?
So when we got our variance for parking last week, we kind of went through some of the requirements. I'm going to start with this one because this is the easy one. We went through some of the requirements for parking for multifamily developments in other cities and other areas around town. We looked at Minneapolis, we looked at Louisville, we looked at Cincinnati, we looked at New Albany, we looked at Clarksville, and everyone except Clarksville has a ratio of 1.5 spaces per unit or less. Some of them were less than 1 space per unit. The other factor that we have to consider here is that a lot of these apartments that are going to be in this building are studio apartments or 1-bedroom apartments. So we have a total of 272 bedrooms in this development with 317 spaces. So we have over 1 space per bedroom, which I think helps the ratio make a little bit more sense. And again, I said, the developer has experience with multifamily in lots of different markets, and 1.5 spaces per unit is more in line with what they're seeing as a demand for their users. What makes this apartment a luxury apartment? As I mentioned before, the quality and design, the amenities, lots of balconies, lots of windows, good materials, the amenities that they have in some of their other developments, which will likely be in this one as well, a 24-hour emergency maintenance service, a billiards room, controlled access security, granite outdoor saltwater pool, outdoor grilling, brand and entertainment space, pet spa and pet park, professional on-site management, bike storage, and then there are just, several other different types of recreational opportunities. There's a big amenity space that we're providing between the detention basin and the building itself. We haven't specifically programmed what that space is going to include, but we've talked about maybe a basketball court or a tennis court, a dog park, a place where you can throw the Frisbee, things like that will be available to the tenants of this apartment. There's also plenty of room for amenity space with the expansion that hopefully will happen down the road. So we can expand those amenities when we expand the number of residents living on this site.
So I live at the Harbors and they're privately owned condos, but they are designated by the number of bedrooms that are allocated in each one. So if it's a 1-bedroom apartment, it's 1 parking spot. And we found that there's always a need for more parking. So I'm concerned about what you intend to do about the parking and about visitor parking and everything else that goes along with servicing that many people in a building. So
yes. And I think that the good thing we have here is there's a lot of extra space on this lot. I think we were trying to balance the anticipated need for parking with minimizing the hard surface on this site and providing as much green space as possible. There is some extra room. So if in the future, when they are fully, developed and the building is full, if they determine there are more spaces needed to accommodate their tenants, there's a whole bunch of area on the other side of the boulevard that is currently undeveloped where we could expand parking if we need to. We were trying to balance the amount of hard surface on this site with green space to provide a more desirable site for the tenants of this development. But there's room for expansion if we need to in the future.
How many proposed units are there going to be in this development?
There are
190, I believe.
Yeah. 190 units.
Yep,
So,
that would be the first building.
Correct. And we have 1.5 spaces per unit, plus an additional 32 spaces for guest parking.
Party. The board have any further questions? If not, we'll seek a motion to approve or deny the development plan and associated waivers, if any.
Well, I'm not happy with it. I think we're throwing them up way too fast and we're requiring far too little. That's my comment.
Okay. Still seeking an approval or a denial of the development plan.
Then I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny the proposed development plan PC 20-16 as presented to the Plan Commission on May 5th, 2020.
I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? I have one motion with to deny with no second. Mr. Merkley, where do we go from here?
Well, that motion fails for lack of a second. Pursuant to statute, this needs to either be denied or approved, or it's going to roll to the next meeting. So
we still have on the table I still need a motion.
Somebody needs to make a motion to approve it then.
And then you can still vote however you choose.
Right.
Well,
go
I
ahead,
mean,
Mr. Merkley.
Yeah, and that may fail too. So the statute says that these type of matters either have to be, you have to act on it, which means it either has to be denied or approved.
So since the denial did not have,
or you can table it to the next meeting, but at some point there's got to be thumbs up or thumbs down on this.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, yeah, I mean, they're not asking the Plan Commission for any waivers. The issue is mostly that this is in the commercial corridor and requires approval by the Plan Commission. The waivers, the variances have already been granted by the BZA. And I would caution
the commission, Chad's correct when they're not asking for the waivers, and there's not a whole lot. You don't have a whole lot of latitude. It's more of a ministerial. Now, if they were coming in and asking for a lot of waivers, then you would have a stronger legal footing. I'm not going to tell. I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just telling you that.
Less essentially, then we approve the waivers through BCA, and they have met most or all the requirements for the straight up zoning. So legally, it looks like that they have met the standards that we require. Is that correct?
Well, I will take that. I will take that back. I was not aware that there were BZA variances, so that does give you something to hang your hat on.
Well, somebody can make a motion to approve it if they like. I'm saying it mostly so the city can remain aware of what we allow to build and the quality built and the number of them that are going up.
My advice would be is if there is someone on the commission that is willing to make that motion to approve, throw it out there and see if we get a second and a vote, and it may still fail. But
I'll go ahead and
make a motion to approve.
Who was that? All right, did you get him? Okay, Sean, who is the second?
Mr. Butterf.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. We're going to move to Chad for the roll call.
Mr. Avery.
Aye.
Mr. Butterf.
Aye.
Ms. Bupp.
Yay.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Mr. Paris.
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
John, we're moving on. John Martin with Guggenheim Partners Incorporated filed a development plan application with waivers for a property at 3418 East 10th Street. The property is zone C2, which is commercial. The proposed development is an instant oil change facility. The docket number is PC-20-17. Do we have representation?
Yes, you do. Name is Phil Gambrell, Prism Engineering, 2309 Waterston Trail, 40299.
Thank you.
As we met last week at the BZA, we requested and was successful in getting the special use exemption because the oil change facility requires a special use exemption in the C2 zoning. Also, we received a variance for the minimum building size, which is requirement of 5,000 square feet. And we are under that at 3,438. In front of you in your packet, you have a development plan that in working with Sean Dade, we've massaged it to bring it down to where there are no waivers to be requested. And in addition, if you, the last part of your packet, the renderings, we have adjusted the building to accommodate staff requests for adding a color band around the top of the building and a reduction in the actual signage on the building exterior. With that, I believe we meet everything within the regional marketplace center that we've set up, that's set within the comprehensive plan. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll open up for public comment. Chad, do we have anything on this one?
We do not.
Okay. Shelby, we good downstairs?
We're good.
Okay. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and we'll open up for the board. Does the board have any comments, concerns, or questions for Phil? If not, we are going to we are seeking a motion to approve or deny this development plan and any associated waivers, if any.
I make a motion to approve the proposed development plan PC 20-17 as presented to the Plan Commission on May 5th, 2020.
A motion for approval from Mr. Burns. Do I have a second?
Second.
Did you get one? At this point, we'll move to, for a roll call, please.
Mr. Avery,
Aye.
Mr. Buttorf,
Aye.
Ms. Bupp,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Webb,
Aye.
Mr. Paris,
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple more items to go. Number 9, Jack Cutter filed a development plan application with waivers for a property at the 4200 block of Town Center Boulevard. The property is zoned C2 PD, which is a planned development. The proposed development is a commercial strip center. The docket number is PC-20-18. Do we have representation?
Yes, Deb Ashak with Jacoby Toombs and Lance, 1829 East Spring Street in New Albany, Indiana, 47150. Phone number 812-945-9585.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead.
okay, this is a proposed development at the Jefferson Town Center. It is an outlot that is undeveloped right now. It's south of the building where Wild Eggs and Boomba's Pizza is located. It is in front of the Alta and Hobby Lobby. It is right on Town Center Boulevard. It's a 9,800 square foot proposed retail space with 73 parking spaces. It does not currently have a tenant lockdown, but some potentials for that. And the parking will be shared with the surrounding businesses as well, as is everything in this development.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll open up for public comment. Chad, do we have anything on this one?
We do not.
Shelby, are we good downstairs?
Good.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll close public comment. Does the board have any comments, concerns, or questions for Deb? If not, we are seeking a motion for approval or deny this development plan and any associated waivers.
I make the motion to approve.
All right, we have an approval from Dewart Avery. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bupp? Chad, we're ready for a roll call.
Mr. Paris,
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon,
Aye.
Mr. Avery,
Aye.
Mr. Bodorf,
Aye.
Ms. Bupp,
Aye.
Mr. Burns,
Aye.
Mr. Webb.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we have one
Thank
more on
you.
the agenda for tonight. Jack Cutter filed a development plan application for the property in the 1500 block of Veterans Parkway. The property is zoned C2 PD, which is a planned development. The proposed development is a commercial strip center. The docket number is PC-20-19. Do we have representation?
Yes, Deb Ashak again with Jacoby Toombs and Lance, 1829 East Spring Street, New Albany, 47150, 812-945-9585. This proposed building and parking lot is in the same development, Jeffersonville Town Center. It is on Veterans Parkway, facing Veterans Parkway, right next to the building that is currently under construction, the Chicken Salad Chick building. This is proposed to be 2 restaurants in 6,600 square foot building with attached parking lot. There will be a drive-through window, and there is an access drive from Veterans Parkway coming into the development on the east side of this building, as well as access on the south from Town Center Boulevard. So 73 parking spaces, and those will be shared with the adjacent building.
And the one of the variant or the waivers was request variance. That's the light pole height is consistent with that which is in existence out there now.
Yes, and the parking in the setback is in alignment with the parking that is already there on the adjacent lot.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll open up for public comment. Is there, Chad, do you have anything?
Nothing on this docket item. Thank you.
All right, Shelby, we good downstairs?
Okay.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll close public comment and we will open up for the board for any comments, concerns, or questions. Feel free to ask Deb.
So this is you said 2 proposed restaurants, so we have tenants for this particular building?
They're both tentative, so I can't give any names.
I understand, but we do have tenants.
Yes,
Thank you.
I believe so.
All right, if there really isn't any further comments, concerns, or questions, I'm gonna move for a motion to approve or deny this development plan and any associated waivers, if any.
I'll make a motion that we approve PC 20-18 as presented.
I have a motion from Dewar to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
19, I think. That one's 19. PC 2019.
There you go.
Yeah.
Chad, we're ready for a roll call.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Paris?
Aye.
Mr. McCutcheon?
Aye.
Mr. Avery?
Aye.
Mr. Bodorf?
Aye.
Ms. Bupp?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to
Thank
thank
you.
each and every one of you under these trying times as we try to keep the city moving forward. And I would also ask, Chad, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I would like to just say the same. Thanks for trying out this new format. It's been interesting for us, and I'm sure it's been interesting for you. We aren't sure what the next Plan Commission meeting will look like at the end of May. There's probably a chance that this could be another Zoom meeting. It could also be an in-person meeting. It's just hard to tell at this point in time. We do want to, I will say that we have 10 items already for that docket. So there's still things coming in and things happening here in Jeff. One thing else I'm just going to bring up, I know that we've kind of made a commitment to revising some parts of our zoning code. So we're hoping to bring you a few more of those needed revisions here at the next meeting. So we'll get that information out to you. Look for it probably by the end of the week, just so that you can kind of take a look at some of the changes that we're proposing.
Okay.
Thanks.
The next scheduled meeting would be May 26th, I think.
May 28th.
8th, okay.
Hang on.
May 26th.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, yeah, my calendar's 2 months old on my desk.
All right, May
You can see how
26th.
often I've been in this office.
There you go. If nobody else has anything, then thanks a lot for taking your time to join us in this. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I know.
Oh.